Question is, what are the big issues coming down the pike at General Convention? And if I had to say, I would say that there's three real specific big issues at General Convention this year. The first one would be blessings of same-gender relationships, which I'll talk about briefly in just a moment. And the other two, I would say, is budget and structure. And we, just like everyone across the country in these economic times, our dioceses, our congregations are struggling about how to make decisions around our finances and our financial resources. And the Episcopal Church is no different from that. In General Convention 2009, we cut $23 million from the Episcopal Church budget. And that played out in every aspect of its work and ministry and management. This year at General Convention, we're facing a similar challenge, and it is looking like the operation budget deficit is around $20 million this time around, in addition to a $30 million deficit around renovations that were conducted at the Church Center in New York. So we have these looming deficits and things we're going to have to work with. Canonically, we have to pass a balanced budget, which will make all of this conversation intense and interesting. And there's a lot of questions around how are we going to fit our resources into our appetites with our appetite for program and mission, and how do we make good choices around our finances. Some people are asking if the 19% asking from diocese is an appropriate number, if that's something that needs to be reconsidered, among a whole other list of things to consider about how are we going to make our budget this year. So that would be one looming issue at General Convention. The other one is about structure. And by structure, I mean how we govern ourselves as a church, how we make decisions, who is able and invited to be at the table when decisions are made about how we govern ourselves, how we live into the future as being a church. And there's some volatile discussions going on around making decisions about how we want to be and how we want to make decisions. And in some ways, there's kind of an emerging fault line around this kind of false polemic between bureaucracy or our structure and how we govern ourselves and mission. And some people are kind of holding these things in a polarity, where in some ways I think that they are part of one another. How we make decisions and how we work together collaboratively equip us to do mission. So although the conversations will be heated, they will be difficult, I'm fairly optimistic and hopeful that General Convention and the people that populate General Convention are going to be able to find ways to make our structure more svelte, if you will, without compromising our democratic process, without compromising full inclusion of the four orders, laity, bishops, deacons, and priests, to come to the table and make decisions about who we are and what we're doing as a church collaboratively. So I'm fairly hopeful that we'll find a way to figure out how we can have both and figuring out. But largely the issue around structure is about the distribution of authority and who has authority to make decisions for our church and who's invited to the table to make those decisions. So I think the importance, and me coming as a deputy, what I'm interested in is supporting initiatives in the structure conversation that is really about how we share authority and equipping us to share authority in making decisions about where we're going. So that's structure and budget. The last big issue is that will require a lot of our focus at General Convention is about blessings of same-gender relationships. And this work comes from a resolution that was passed in General Convention 2009. CO 56 was the resolution. And what that resolution did was it called the Standing Commission on Liturgy and Music to spend the 3 years in between General Convention to collect and develop theological and liturgical resources for the blessings of same-gender relationships. The Standing Commission on Liturgy and Music did a fantastic job in living up to that resolution and that call from 2009 General Convention. They obtained grant funding. They included thousands of people from across our church to participate in the discussion and the collecting of those theological and liturgical resources. So they're coming to General Convention with an enormous amount of work for us to consider, broken down into two things. One is the theological resources, which are included in about a 100-page report called Faith, Hope, and Love, Theological Resources for Blessing Same-Gendered Relationships. And this report is a real work of art. It is beautifully written, it is deeply considered, and it focuses on 4 theological themes: mission, blessing, Christian unity, and biblical interpretation. And it reflects the wide breadth of our church, our theological ideas and our different perspectives, and all of the people that live under the big tent that is the theological life of the Episcopal Church. It is wide, it is deep, it is well considered, and it is beautifully written. And I'd commend it to anybody, to any congregation that is engaging this conversation as a real significant resource for considering theological implications of same-gendered blessings. And then the other part of the offering from the Standing Commission on Liturgy is the liturgies themselves, which is right here, the Witnessing and Blessing of a Lifelong Covenant, Liturgical Resources for Blessing Same-Gender Relationships. And both the report and the liturgical resources will be considered in the Committee 13 Liturgy, Prayer Book, and Music, and then will be referred to the House of Bishops. So we have a lot on our plate at General Convention, but I know that the deputation from Minnesota is leaving Minnesota next Monday full of hope and anticipation and optimism that we'll be able as a church to come out better and stronger on the other side of these difficult conversations.